As we inch closer to Election Day, it's easy to get caught up in the uncertainty, worrying about our nation's future.
Yeah, so Stanford University physician and mindfulness expert Dr. Greg Hammer is joining us now to talk about ways to reduce stress during the election season. Very good topic to address. Good morning.
Good morning, Zach and Haley.
So for some people, not knowing what could happen in the future, just the not knowing is what brings them a lot of stress. And so when it comes to this election cycle, and it seems that anything can happen, and both sides think that, it could be total detriment to the country if the other side wins. Is this a normal feeling of tense and anxiety leading into an election?
Yes, it is. In fact, I'm probably butchering this, but it was Yogi Berra who said something like, the future is hard to predict. Mm-hmm. And, our brains are wired in ways, Haley, that tend to make us feel a lot of stress. This acute stress response, which evolved in the face of actual threat, like a saber-toothed tiger lurking outside the mouth of our cave.
Yeah.
Fast forward, now is mainly triggered by our thoughts. And our brains are wired to be rather negative. This is well documented in psychology science and social science. We tend to hold on to the negative and forget the positive. And another way our brains are wired is to be very obsessed with the future and the past. And when you combine these, when we overthink the future, we generate a lot of fear and anxiety because we catastrophize. We think of the worst thing that might happen, even though 99 point whatever percent of the time it doesn't happen. But yes, I think that the other thing to consider beside the way our brains are wired in stress is that there's just such a high level of baseline stress to begin with, especially these days with wars around the world in Israel and Ukraine and climate change, all this bad news about incredible heat. I know you've had it down there. We're still in the shadow of COVID. There's actually a resurgence of COVID. So yes, things are stressful at a baseline.
And then, Dr. Hammer, when you factor in families, you're talking about a whole new level of stress. Talk to us about signs and symptoms someone might be feeling, and of course, the pressure that comes with being stressed.
Absolutely. I think, we know it when it happens. This acute stress response involves a lot of adrenaline circulating in our body and a lot of cortisol. The adrenaline results in increase in our heart rate, our blood pressure. We may feel jittery. We may get a little sweaty. We get flooded with this adrenaline-induced emotion, so we kind of know when we're in that state. And resilience is the ability to neutralize that so it doesn't become chronic, because chronic stress is really associated with accelerated aging and the diseases of aging. So it's really important to recognize when we're feeling stressed and to have tools to deal with it.
Yeah. As part of my personal mission to end the mental health stigma, I try to tell people all the time that your mental health and your physical health are very intertwined. So thank you for giving us those examples of how this manifests into your physical well-being, but also talk about personal resilience and how how this can be healthy to use these maybe negative feelings like anxiety and build upon their own personal resilience.
That's a great point. Yeah. So when we're feeling, we're overthinking the future, we're feeling very negative. If we have a sort of, let's say, mindfulness practice, when we're experiencing those feelings of anxiety and stress, a light bulb may go off and we'll recognize that we're feeling that way. And, it really starts, Haley, with the breath. When we're stressed, we can go a whole day without really taking a deep breath. And there's a lot of physiologic reasons why that's not good for us. So just understanding when we're feeling stressed, taking a few slow, very deep breaths, expanding that into our belly, that activates our parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve, counteracts a lot of the fight or flight or sympathetic responses that we feel when we're stressed. So just taking a deep breath and then hopefully having a practice where we actually embrace the negative, accept the fact that we're wired this way, and and drop the self-judgment and judgment of others. And I think in the context of political discussions, that can be extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Do not underestimate how important that breathing is.
Breath work is so critical, especially being cognizant and aware of those moments, as you said, embracing the negative. With that, Dr. Hammer, I want to ask you, politics, they're not going anywhere, right? They're always going to be around. You're going to have your opinion. I'm going to have my opinion. It's going to be a sensitive topic for everyone. Talk to us about ways people can keep these conversations at bay or facilitate meaningful discussions around these topics.
Without hating each other.
Right.
Well, the mindfulness practice that I embrace and teach is called GAIN, gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. GAIN is an acronym for those 4 domains. So it starts with gratitude. So first, let's be grateful that we have a political system at all and that it's not just a one-party dictatorship. I think that our democracy overall works very well. And we look around the world and compared to other systems, ours works pretty well. So let's be grateful for that. Let's even be grateful for our connection to other people, even when we don't agree. The N in GAIN on the other end is non-judgment, and we are naturally very judging. And again, with our negativity bias, we tend to judge others, the world, and most harshly ourselves negatively. So let's recognize that. And then there are tools in the GAIN practice and other mindfulness meditation practices where we can learn to be less judgmental. And so it takes a practice.
Yeah. I love that. Dr. Greg Hammer, we've appreciated talking to you this morning. That was all very good information.
My pleasure. Great to be with you both.